Growing up, my father worked. He worked all the time. The smell of sawdust, sweat, and beer entered the room before him. He was hard on me. He wanted me to be tough outside our home. My father told me you don't need anybody. But it's funny though, because my father also taught me how to need somebody. It wasn't until I was older that I realized my father had no choice but to be tough. He had no choice but to fight for what he wanted. He understood that his father had to fight also. My father craved for the love of his father. It's why he always answers the phone. It's why he always shows up, even if the smell of sawdust and sweat enter before him. Sometimes generational trauma happens because hurt people. But other times, people are just trying to survive. And surviving can be traumatic. But at least there's hope that someone down the line breaks the cycle. My grandfather's job was to provide. My father's job was to endure. My job is to progress. My job is to make sure the people that I come from didn't break for nothing. Nos quieren enterrar, pero no saben que somos semillas. Y de las semillas, come todo el mundo. What's your favorite part about the video? Your favorite? Because I have a lot of words that are in there that I think are very, very powerful to the experience of an immigrant. Maybe it's not even Mexican Americans, because again, the power of social media. There's been people that are like working class, blue collar, white people that are like, oh my God, this was my father. There's been people that are Arabic that have
it's
commented.
Just an immigrant.
And been like, yo, like it's not just you guys.
It's a low income thing. It's like, this is resonating for people who have had to deal with being a low income family.
So what's your favorite part about the video?
My favorite part is my baby in the video. Like, because my baby has been, I think, a very like pinnacle point in our family that I think both of our parents were like, oh shit, like we have someone other than our children that we have to change for. Because there's been a lot of like our parents, like every parent, I think has a hesitation to change the habits that they had with their kids, because they grew up doing that while we were being raised, and so it's just something that it was ingrained in their heads for so long. But when they saw this new life, like I've heard mom and dad very specifically be like, I had to stop because of her. And I had to change habits. I had to change the way that I speak to you. I had to change the way I spoke to your brothers. I had to change the way that I approached mental health, the way I approached you guys' health in general, like different things that they're like, it's because we want to grow old enough to see her and then the rest of our grandchildren that are going to come. And I've used her. I'm not going to lie. I've used her as like, y'all don't want to see her grow up? Like, y'all really gonna keep having these bad habits? Like, and they're like,
damn, not the gaslighting.
I do. I straight up, I'm like, Dad, especially with Dad, because my dad had a bad habit of never wanting to get himself checked out, and he had a scare this year that I dead ass looked him dead in the eye. I was like, ¿No quieres conocer a tus nietos? And he looked at me and he goes, what? And I was like,
say what?
I was like, ¿No quieres conocer a tus nietos? I'm like, you have two whole ass kids that don't have kids yet. You don't want to meet them? You don't want to meet their kids?
Damn.
And he just looked at me and I was like, you met one.
Damn.
But that don't mean that you're going to get to meet the other ones if you keep acting the way you're acting. So get it together. And he was like, okay.
You said grow up.
I did say grow up.
to a 50-year-old man. Just grow up.
Grow up.
Grow up, dog.
Get on it.
Get on it, bro.
For real.
Get off the couch.
And so kind of going back to the video.
Get off of YouTube.
And he's changed habits because of that, and he's like, he doesn't drink
That's
anymore.
the part of the video. That's the part of the video also wherever
it says
generational trauma.
It's like there's somebody comes along to break the cycle, and that's why it felt so beautiful to see in the video, because to me everything that you put, like because it's my parents, like when you say like my father taught me how to need someone, right, with mom, because the truth is, like, yes, like dad would not be able to do half of the things that he does if he didn't have mom's support.
Correct.
Even though it hasn't felt that way the entire time growing up. You know, if there's always situations where you're like, no way. Like, dad doesn't need mom for this, or mom doesn't need dad for this. And it's like, no, they do. They're a partnership. They need each other. And so they always have had that, like, cohesion there that sometimes goes unnoticed by us. But I think those two parts have always been my favorite. And then also, like, those clips you have of grandpa, because we know, you know, the amount of, I've had a lot of conversations with dad about the generational trauma that came from his father and how much he worked. You could see just how much he worked to not pass it on to you, specifically you, because you were the firstborn, you were a boy. So you grew up with dad being a different kind of man, and he tried his hardest to avoid being the man that grandfather was to grandma. I think,
yeah,
at a lot of points, that, I mean, obviously there's a lot of differences between them, but like there was a lot where he like tried his hardest not to like just dump it all on you, because it's so easy. Like, it's so easy. He could have just so easily been like, you know what, fuck it, I had a bad dad, I'm gonna be a bad dad.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Yeah, the excuse was always there.
Yeah, it was always there. And
Yeah.
I think seeing also just the fact that you had like this beautiful idea of talking about dad like that. And you're right, like it's so reminiscent to so many people, because we're at a point in our lives or at a point in the world where the conversation of breaking generational trauma is very big.
Yeah.
And so you open that door, like, or open a lens into a side of our family that is talking about breaking generational trauma that I think a lot of people in the world, especially people in our age group, are talking about or thinking about. It's very prominent in their heads right now because we're getting older.
Yeah.
we're making families now. So
I think the main sentiment that I really wanted to get across from the video was specifically it was more we have to figure out a way to put context to history. That was where I was like really trying to come from, because it comes with a little bit of privilege. Like, it comes with a little bit of fortune, because we are lucky enough to not have a bad father, right? Like, if we had the kind of family that where it was so toxic that we like have been consistently being hurt by all of us or the adults, and then I think it might have been harder to gain this perspective. But the main sentiment that I was trying to get is we have to put context to history. And if you put, in relation to our family, if you put our parents historically in the year where they had me, where they had you, and you put them as 20-year-olds, and then you visualize like, what does it mean to be a 20-year-old? What do I remember being a 20-year-old? Do you remember being a 22-year-old, a 23-year-old, and how you didn't understand the world? And then you put these two people in a new country with not knowing the language, dealing with their marriage, dealing with their relationship that they may or may not wanted, or they may or may not even anticipated like being, holding down for so long, that they had to uproot their lives and give up on their dreams and give up on versions of themselves. And, just that if you contextualize all of that, then you start to realize that despite the fact that maybe it's our family or it's your father or whoever that, and you may be hurt by a lot of their decisions, once you contextualize it, hopefully you come to the realization that they're just as broken as you are in some ways, or they're more broken than you are in some ways, or they're deeply hurt because of decisions that they had to make as immigrants, as low income, as people trying to survive. And I think recontextualizing that was very important, because it humanizes people. I think a lot of times, and it's through no fault of our own, I think a lot of times, as because we live inside our own brain, we look at people that are supposed to have a title, dad, mom, grandma, grandfather, right? And when we're kids, the notion is, oh, these people have it together. These people have, know how to protect me. These people aren't fallible. These people are flawless. They know what to do, blah, blah, blah. And then you get hurt by them in some way, shape, or form, especially when they're not all the way there emotionally, psychologically, bad habits, vices, addictions, right? Like you contextualize it all. And you're like, oh my God, like this person was suffering.
Yeah.
This person was suffering and was still supposed to take care of me and was still supposed to figure out a way to teach me how to get here from point A to point B. And maybe they weren't as successful. And maybe they never told me that they knew that they weren't as successful. Maybe they never let it show that they were beating themselves up because they weren't that successful and because they wanted me to be here or they wanted you to be there. Or you know what I mean? Yeah. So recontextualizing all of that, all underneath this mask of culture, of Mexican culture, dictating that don't show vulnerability to your kids, don't show vulnerability to the world, don't show vulnerability to other people, because you have to keep fighting, you have to keep going, and you have to, right? I think that was the main intention, like the main goal that I had, because over the past, I'm 32 now, so over the past 7 years, it has been a personal journey of mine to try and understand the mindset, the feelings, the mental, the mindscape that our parents were in, so that there could be some sort of perspective that I can gain, so that I don't fault them for things that they may or may not even know what was going on in my mind, to me, or in general. You know what I mean? And I think that's important. I think understanding the history that you come from and the people that you come from and their story as much as possible, good, bad, and ugly, asking them questions about like things that maybe a son or a daughter wouldn't ask a parent, right? Yeah. I think it's important. I think it's like it recontextualizes the way that you think about your history. And it goes to one of the other points that I wanted to make in the video of, there's a line where I say like, my job is to progress, and my job is to make sure that the people that I come from didn't break for nothing. Mm-hmm. And that specific sentiment goes to a very wide range of topics that I've realized is like all tethered to that. I've had friends before. I mean, you know how social I can be and how easily I can be part of a lot of different groups. So I've been parts of groups where people do not have that history. People do not, like their parents do not have that kind of history. I had friends, I've been around friends that are like, oh my God, we're going skiing this weekend. Or like, oh my God, you know what I mean? What's your favorite thing to do over there? Oh, my favorite vacation is to Costa Rica. Or like my favorite, like, and I'm like, man, we come from two different worlds, yeah. Right? And they don't have that kind of version of their family to kind of tug on. And for a long time, I would be around certain people that were more well off financially than we were, and I've said to myself like, oh man, like there's a little bit of shame, but then there's also a little bit of jealousy, yeah. And and then I've come to the realization that you just get what you get, yeah. And you have to be grateful for what you have. So I've come to the realization that like one, if I want a certain future, I need to go out and try to get it, right? But then two, there are certain realities that I'm just never going to experience. Yeah. And you kind of have to come to terms with that. And I use that to myself a lot whenever I say that to myself a lot, because sometimes I'm like, you don't even have the luxury of speaking in certain ways. You don't have the luxury of saying like, oh, I'm gonna fuck this off, or oh, like this doesn't matter, or oh, I'm gonna go ahead and make this kind of life decision, or this kind of, like, in a lot of ways, I've had to backpedal on a whole bunch of my personal dreams and desires, only because I'm like, I don't have the luxury of pretending like I can just willy-nilly like, yeah, lackadaisically frolic into my dreams. Like I don't have that kind of support, and it's not a bad thing. Yeah, it's not. But I come from these people
I come from these people that in their own right, contextually speaking, did great, phenomenal things and made great, phenomenal sacrifices. And it would be such a slap in the face to make decisions to fuck up my life or to engage in certain things that disrespect their sacrifice. So in a lot of ways, in my mind, I'm like, I don't have that kind of luxury. I don't have the kind of luxury that other people have where they can just kind of like willy-nilly find something to do. Maybe my kids will have that. Maybe my grandkids will have that. But like realizing that I come from a very specific people and they made great sacrifices. And in order for me not to disrespect those decisions and that legacy, I need to further the progress.
Yeah.
I need to be another catalyst for another jump into financial security, into more healthier relationships, into a new world, a new digital world, a new, you know, I mean, like I need to be the conduit of that, or else all of the sacrifice that was put behind, that was there behind me is just goes to waste. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think like when you're like, I look at it through the lens of motherhood and parenthood, when an association to our family and our parents, because, and for me, it's also been those 7 years. And consequently, it's just because of the fact that I've been a mom for 7 years, that when I have thought about all the sacrifices our family made, it makes a lot of sense as to why they emphasize so many things in our lives, like college education, like pursuing our dreams, even though we were defying some of the expectations that they had of us. Like, I think our parents always made the effort to still be just as supportive of that, because they didn't get to do that. They had to let go of every single dream, aspiration, anything that could have remotely been like fucked off. Like you said, like they had no other. They had the choice, actually. They had every choice to leave us behind. They had every choice to leave you behind, because we see it happen all the time. People leave their kids with grandparents and they just disappear and go do whatever they want to do. And our family, our mom and our dad, chose to sacrifice every bit of their dreams, aspirations, and their adulthood, like young adulthood, for the sake of raising their family. And yes, there is a lot of, you know, societal pressures and cultural pressures that were going into that, because God forbid that anybody in the family ever did something like that in either side of the family. They would have shunned them out, been like, what's wrong with you? Why would you do that? Yeah. But they still did it. Like, that, just because you're shunned doesn't mean you can't do it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you could have enough balls to do anything. And so seeing mom and dad sacrifice their life like that, when I was younger, it didn't make sense to me. I was like, why do you care that I do this? Like, why do you care that I don't do this? What if I don't want to? Like, what if because I'm not gonna lie, for me specifically, being the only girl in the family, it felt very heavy to feel my mom's hopes and dreams on my shoulders. Yeah. Because mom put a lot of her hopes and dreams on my shoulders. And when I fell pregnant, I saw her heartbreak. Like, I saw it happen when I explained to her, and she was like, I could tell that she didn't know what to say to me, because I think her whole life flashed before her. And she was just like, it's going to happen all over again. She's going to lose everything. She's going to lose everything that she ever wanted, everything that she ever said that she wanted to do. It's gone, because she has a child now. She can never.
And then the crazy thing after that was that she chose to not act like her mother.
And she did everything opposing her mother. Yeah. So she, and on the contrary, mom has done everything in her power, despite her having some issues with it sometimes, has done everything in her power to allow me to still dream, to allow me to still have aspirations that might not just be being a mom, especially a single mom. Like, she has done everything, and she's been like, you know what? I'm going to be your support. I'm going to be whatever you need me to be in the moment. And if that means, I'm going to take care of your kid while you go do this, so that you don't feel like I felt when I felt alone, and I felt like I was in a cage, and I felt like I couldn't say or do anything about the life that I was living. I was miserable. I had to suck it up because I had no other option, but you have another option because you have me.
Yeah.
That's what mom has done. And that's what and like, because even though dad like wants to be a part of that, there's a difference. Like, he has made the effort to be that way with both of y'all a lot, because dad's always kind of given me my way regardless. Like, dad's always been very like, oh, my daughter, like, she needs this. And dad's always just tried to be the man that he hopes another man will be for me.
Yeah.
He sets me the example of, a man should treat you like this. You shouldn't have to do XYZ because a man should do that for you.
Yeah.
And he has. He's really set that bar up there for me. And for y'all, it's the total opposite, where he's like, this is the kind of man you need to be. And this is what you got to do with your manhood. And this is what you got to do. And that's hard on y'all. Like, I feel as though in our culture, it's hard being a girl and it's hard being a guy. But I personally feel, being unaware of what you guys have to go through because I'm not a man, to me, it's a lot scarier to think of that, like, of how dad had to maneuver this world in a new country, doing all the things that he did, not speaking the language, but also having to be the man that could support, protect, and endure the hardships and pass that on to y'all.
Yeah.
And he did everything possible to allow you guys to fuck off if you really needed to. Like, to say, like, yeah, fuck it, whatever.
Yeah.
And to a certain extent, some things we kind of have. Like, we are a very privileged family still. Like, mom and dad have been very successful enough to allow us to kind of say, fuck it, I'm not going to finish this. Or fuck it, I'm not going to do that. Like, I don't care. I want to do this, or I'm going to do this for myself. But they've also taught us through their actions is you pull yourself up from your bootstraps and you do it, even though it's hard. And all of us have done that. Like, you have worked since you were really young, and you've never stopped working. Like, you've literally never, because you don't have the privilege to just stop working. I have as well. I've worked since I was 16 years old, and I've literally never stopped working, from the exception of having a child. That was literally the only time. And it's been, fuck it, I gotta figure this out. Yep. If that means, for me personally, if that means I can't finish school right now, then I can't finish school right now, because what comes first is making sure my kid is okay and making sure I'm okay. And we'll figure it out as I go, as we're doing it. But they've given us the opportunity to do this. Yeah. They've given us the opportunity, and they've given us the, support to be creative, because that's something that all of them have always been very adamant of. Like, you guys are so creative. Like, mom and dad are like, oh my God, you guys have such great ideas. You guys are doing all these really crazy things. And they go out of their way to be like, you guys should do it. That's such a great idea. Yeah. And this is what this means. And in Mexico, this is whatever, like, they put in a context some stuff, and they're always super supportive of like this dream that we have. And they've never once been people who are like, nah, you really think you're gonna be able to make it? Like, you really think you're gonna be able to do that? On the contrary, they're like telling all of our uncles and aunts to look at our stuff, and they're like, yo, we don't even know what y'all are saying, but we got it, we support y'all. And we're like, what? Like, and it's crazy. And I think that's a really beautiful thing for our family. And I think your video is indicative of the kind of father that we've had growing up. Is just somebody who, even though it was hard for him, he always wanted to show up and be supportive. And as mom, the same thing.
Yeah. I think it goes from documentary to poetry after a certain point in the video, right? And then that last bit has hit a lot of people in the feels.
Yeah.
The last words that I say on the video are, nos querían enterrar, pero no saben que somos semillas. Y de las semillas come todo el mundo. Yeah. So that phrase in and of itself, for the translation, is the translation is, they wanted to bury us, but they didn't know that we were seeds, and from seeds the whole world eats, right? So that metaphor is so poignant for the immigrant experience, because one, for the record, I didn't come up with the beginning of that quote. Like, they wanted to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds. From my understanding, that quote's been around for a very, 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 very long time. And it has been co-opted, not co-opted. I mean, maybe that's the wrong word. The immigrant experience, other Mexican American and like Latino people have taken to that phrase. The last bit of the "from seeds eats the whole world," right? That's mine. That I added. That's brand new. That's directly coming from my analysis, and I think it's more so like a hope. Like that part of that part of that quote is more like me being hopeful, because again, the beginning, like they wanted to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds. That is such a powerful thing for the immigrant experience, considering the fact that there are certain realities that we already live with. Like the immigrant, the like Mexican, the Latin American immigrant already is the one in the field, in like actual farming fields, producing most of the crops for the United States, like, Southern California, like, all of these places, like, for us to refer ourselves as seeds when a lot of the people that we come from are farmers is very like it captures a very specific imagery. And then not only that, like if you look up the statistics and how much of the produce that goes to most of the restaurants around the United States are all been farmed by immigrant hands, like how many immigrant hands have to how the food that you eat has to cross through a lot of immigrant hands is very poignant to that. Like, we're always invisible, we're always on the back end, we're always underneath the earth, we're always but we are the fertilization, like we are the crop that continues to feed the world. And obviously, like the entire world, big place, is kind of hyperbolic, but in the context of this country, 100%, the immigrant experience gets downplayed and romanticized so much. Right? Like the immigrant experience in terms of history is the history of the United States, and it gets romanticized, though the American Revolution or the Irish coming here, Ellis Island, right? Like the American Dream, Ellis Island, like all of these, maybe with the exception of Black people in slavery, the immigrant experience is a very romanticized experience here in this country, and yet at the same time, the current immigrants that keep, in a lot of ways, contributing to the backbone of the country. That, by the way, black people provided already because of slavery, and they were main what am I thinking of? Like the cotton industry in the South was essentially built the infrastructure of the entire country. The immigrant experience continues to be the unsung hero of the American experience, and it's both a sign of hope for me when I say de las semillas come todo el mundo, because it makes me feel like from the immigrant experience, it doesn't have to be me specifically, but from the immigrant experience, the embodiment of whatever that means, be it a Mexican kid or a Mexican girl or a Hondureño or like, it doesn't really matter. Just any immigrant experience, it makes me feel like it is from that experience that the entire world will continue eating, but not actual food, just new art.
Symbolically,
New, ball players, sports players, you know what I mean? Like football players, baseball players. Like, you are going to constantly keep consuming our DNA, our fabric, the fabric of who we are. You are going to constantly be consuming that, and our impact is subtle enough that you don't notice it, but big enough that it's going to continue rocking everything. It's going to continue rocking the fabric of this country, whether you like it or not. And it's going to continue feeding you. It's going to continue feeding you material. It's going to continue feeding you actual food. It's going to continue feeding you ideas. It's going to continue feeding you, and you can't get away from it. There's no way that in any way, shape, or form you're ever going to get away from the immigrant experience, providing the through their pain and through their struggle, providing the necessary information that is going to continue feeding the entire culture of this country.
Yes,
You know what I mean? And it sounds hyperbolic when I say it, but if you really if you dive deep, it's everywhere. Like you consume our food.
If you start looking into it for real, like just even like musically, like the beginning of pretty much all American modern music comes from Black people in the South.
Well, I mean, I'm speaking,
and it's like, and
I'm
that
speaking to like Hispanics and Latin Americans specifically.
And Hispanics specifically, like you're speaking about the food, and you're not
I
only
can't go on any barbecue channel on YouTube without the barbecue channel eventually talking about how to make asado, how to make like some sort of like trompo, how to make fucking suadero, how to make, like, I can't go anywhere on a barbecue thing where eventually they're not talking about how to make tacos al pastor, how to make the perfect taco, how to make you know what I mean? I can't go anywhere online. Again, like we seep into everything because we've always been there.
And in our family directly, we come from farmers. So like our grandfather used to farm here he used to come to
Texas.
No, to California.
Oh, okay.
He'd go to California.
Oh, that's right.
He'd go to California and he'd farm for X amount of months with our uncle, and then go back to Mexico, because that was normal. Like that was a very normalized thing. America has always done that, and they used to give these people.
America has always imported labor.
They've always imported labor.
That has been their biggest import.
So, and it's legal, y'all. Like they would get farmers visas where they would come, literally be here for X amount of time, go back home, and then come back and do it all over again. And that's like, part of it. Like that's how grandpa, mom went to freaking California before any of us ever even were conceived, dog. Like mom used to stay in California sometimes with her aunts and uncles, and she went to Disney and all these crazy things. And when we think about like our family, like our dad's side, our grandmother here, it was the first person to come and live here for real. And she's really the reason why we are even here to begin with, to be fair. She used to work at restaurants. That's what she would do. She'd cook for people. She would literally feed people while she was here. Yeah. Which is crazy. Yeah. To think about that, like all of the stuff, the amount of people that our grandmother impacted through her food, because of the fact that she loved it. Like she of course it was a job, but like she enjoyed, till the last day of her life, she enjoyed feeding people and giving people, because she understood. And
in a lot of ways, that's emblematic of everybody's abuelita.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Like, especially as Hispanics, where like, that you go to abuelita's house, like we, having gone through her recent loss, like we've talked about in depth, that I know a lot of Hispanic people can really relate to, is going back to their homes in the motherland, right? Whether you're Mexican, Salvadorian, Hondureño, whatever, right? You go back to their houses and it just doesn't feel the same anymore.
Yeah, the spirit is gone.
This doesn't feel like a home anymore. It just feels like a house. I'm walking into a house, not a home anymore. And you see clips of, I have a video of where I never even thought about this, but I have a video that I posted of a vlog that I made in Mexico. And you see grandma in the back making us asado. And she specifically was like, le voy a hacer asado a mi niña porque es su comida favorita. And I fucking love asado. Like I love her asado. And I would literally be like, abuelita, enséñame cómo hacerlo, porque I want to learn. I want to know how to get this feeling back when inevitably you're going to be gone, right? And luckily for me, mom learned how to make it the way grandma does it. And I'm thankful, because something that's, for instance, is lost to time now is los tamales de mi abuelita Celia. Like, ain't nobody learned how to make them the way she did. So we can never have...
she hoarded that shit too. She's like, nah, I can't.
And we'll never have her tamales de frijoles.
She was like,
again.
if I show you, you're going to make them. You're not going to come here no more.
Yeah, like we'll never have her tamales de frijoles. And the frijoles ones were fucking... They'd go fucking hard, dog.
It's like the masa was like perfect.
The masa was perfect. And the frijoles were so like refritos. And they were so like smooth and butter. I can't even describe it, but like they were so good. They had the right amount of chile on there to where like they were red, and they were like super like, I don't know. They were just so good.
It was perfect.
It was their and you know what? Porque mi abuelita agarraba el metate, and she would like go in and go hard on that hoe.
Hours.
She'd literally make it into a tiny little paste. Like the beans would be a paste. And I was like, what the fuck? And mom's like, yeah, that's what she'd do. Like whenever she'd make them, she's like, I'm not finna do that shit for y'all. But like, that's how she
said,
did.
fuck y'all. She said, I ain't got time for that
shit. I don't got time to making
said,
y'all that. But like, you know, that's how it would be done.
What do you think this is, the 50s?
Then what you think this is? Like,
what you
not
think
me.
this is?
But
that's funny.
it's crazy to know that like that the impact.
Yeah.
For sure.
So anyway, needless to say, thank you guys again for the support on that video. We've got more content that is along the same lines, along the same veins as that, and we're gonna keep at it. We hope to turn it into something a lot bigger. So we hope that you keep coming back and liking our stuff so that we can give you more of that perspective. But until then, just keep watching and keep, you know, having a good time with us. I think we should probably go into the bullshit now.
Duh.